So thank you all for joining us. Good to see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces as well. I know we have some folks in Japan joining us and all over the US and I think a couple other countries as well. So welcome. I love that to see a lot of new faces. So this is Chatter Up, put on by JapanBall, and really happy to have Trey Hillman as our guest today. Um, just to give a run of show here, I'm going to make a couple of announcements. Um, and then, per usual, we'll get to our special guest, do an introduction, ask a couple prepared questions, and then open it up for audience Q&A. Trey agreed to join us for up to 45 minutes, so I'm really grateful for his time. So we'll keep it moving along so we can get as much questions in as we can. So I'd like to introduce Joshua Mori is our co-host today, and I'm just gonna put you in the spotlight. Hey, Josh.
Sure.
All right. So for those of you who don't know Josh, he is the owner of Yanase USA, which is a partner of JapanBall. They make baseball bats. Yanase is one of the most respected bat companies in Japan, and Josh brought Yanase to the United States, and they make really high quality products. I will show a couple of those later. And he also is the founder of the Far East Baseball Exchange, which has a lot of similar values to JapanBall in wanting to spread goodwill through baseball and cultural exchange and bridge building between different communities. So Josh and I have a lot in common. Josh, in what he does, has a lot in common with JapanBall. Hope you guys can see me. I'm kind of in the bright light here, but anyway. So Josh, really happy to have you on here, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for that kind introduction, Shane. First of all, just thank you for having me. And I just love Trey. I haven't seen you in a while, so it's so great to see your face. I wish I could give you a big hug. Um, Really, I just want to introduce Trey, and I'm going to do an introduction, and we'll get into a couple questions, and Shane and I will kind of curate some of these questions. So, for those of you who don't know Trey, he won the 2006 Japan Series and Asia Series titles with the Hokkaido Nippon-Ham Fighters. He won the KBO 2018 Korea Series with SK Wyverns, and is the only person to manage an NPB, MLB with the Kansas City Royals and the KBO. Trey, who is currently the Miami Marlins third base coach, has 35 years plus of professional baseball experience. In the MLB, has been a coach or executive for the Cleveland Indians, New York Yankees, Texas Rangers, Kansas City Royals, Los Angeles Dodgers, and now the Marlins. He is best known for his 5 tremendous seasons in Japan with the Nippon-Ham Fighters. I saw somebody on the call had their jersey on. That's awesome. And he made the postseason 3 times, winning 2 pennants and the 2006 Japan Series and Asia Series, beating the winners of the leagues in Korea, Taiwan, and China. Some players that you may recognize from the Fighters teams are Yu Darvish, Hiroki Kuroda, and Tsuyoshi Shinjo. After 3 years managing the rebuilding Kansas City Royals, Trey left for Incheon, South Korea, and won another championship, this time with SK Wyverns in 2018. He's only the second non-Korean manager in the KBO and the first to win a title. That is Trey's bio. I would like to actually share a few just kind of personal experiences with Trey, and then kind of get into some questions. Trey, I'm gonna, I loved when I was living in Japan and you were managing the Fighters, and you'd come to the Tokyo Dome. And one of the things that I respect the most is you genuinely care about people, and I love that. And I think I want to start off the first question with what kind of values really led you to be able to have that genuine attitude. And you're walking on the field in a foreign country, and these players respect you, but you're just so personable and so genuine. So I want to get to maybe a little bit before you went to Japan of some of those values and upbringing that really created you who you are.
Well, I appreciate you starting off with that question, Josh. And I love you and I love your family. And I cherish my memories. The first time we met in Japan, and your lineage and everything that you've dedicated with your life and helping people. But honestly, the thing that I grew up with, I was very, very blessed to be uh, in a loving Christian home. And, it was kind of a parallel for me. I grew up loving, absolutely loving baseball. I grew up actually, a lot of people don't know this, some do, grew up as a competitive gymnast. So,
Hmm.
and my father was a football coach, but he also coached baseball and track. And I grew up thinking that every dad knew how to teach their son everything about every sport. That's just how I grew up. Dad, even as a football coach, he wouldn't let me start playing football until sixth grade, and that's like way late here in the state of Texas. And the I was itching to play, so I was a competitive gymnast through sixth grade. Uh, in my first year playing football, and I'd always loved baseball. So the way I grew up was just, as corny as it sounds, cliche-ish as it is, I grew up really for the love of the game. I don't think there's any other game that God has blessed us with that parallels life as much as the game of baseball does. The ups, the downs, the length of the season, um, the daily grind, and how you choose to view that positively or negatively. Were you 0 for 4 yesterday, and how's your outlook today? Whatever. But that's always been a passion of mine, baseball, and then loving people. I love relationships. I have a very, very simple three-part paradigm, if you will, or subheading of what my leadership philosophy is, and that number one, two, conversation over confrontation, and number three is timing and presentation. And there's like I can speak on that for like 2 hours. Um, but when I'm in a leadership position, even though I'm not managing right now, I'm still the defensive coordinator with the Miami Marlins. So I'm still in a little bit of a leadership position underneath the manager. Um, I go back to those three bullet points, if you will. But at the end of the day, it all goes back to the foundation of having a good relationship. So I love baseball. I love people. I love my family. I left Japan and Korea not because of the job. I left closer to family. So it's really important to me. I've got a tremendous wife. We just celebrated in December, celebrated our 30th anniversary. We've got two wonderful children. One is married to a major league ball player, and I told her, don't date baseball guys because all men are pigs, baseball men are piggier. And what did she do? She married a baseball guy. So that was definitely a God thing. And our son was a collegiate player at an NCAA Division I school and is in the working world now. And I've just been really blessed. But I love people. I love my family more than my job. But I really, really love the game of baseball.
It's funny, Trey, because I still remember going to the Tokyo Dome, and I would, they have the cheerleaders and they have all the gymnastics on the field and everything. And your daughter would actually go out on the field at that time and join the cheerleaders out there. And I just love how you brought your whole family along on this journey and let them participate in it.
Well, there's no possible way that I would be where I am today, and I'm fixing to experience my 37th year in professional baseball. And this will be, a lot of people don't know this, but you have designated coaches in Major League Baseball. So we get to partner up with the Players Association. We're, the best way I can say it is we're guests. We get to be guests. So you have the manager is mandatory. The coaches and trainers. So you have a total of 7, but they're being mandatory, but the 4 coaches are designated. So I will be experiencing my 10th year as designation, which maxes me out. And it's a God bless thing, but it maxes me out on my major league pension plan through the blessing of the Players Association.
Mm-hmm.
And, honestly, I tell people this all the time. My first year in the major leagues was 2003 in the Seibu Dome with the Nippon-Ham Fighters as their manager. That was my first day in the major leagues. Mm-hmm. Now, the unfortunate part of that is I don't get pension time for that in an earthly world, but I look at that and I go, man, that was my, if you count my international with 5 in Korea, and then this will be my 10th here in the major leagues, my 37th overall. For a guy that was nothing more than a piece of cow dung minor league utility man professionally, that's not bad. And I feel very, very blessed for that.
I still remember too that we were sitting watching the pregame and the BP, and Shinjo's just hitting balls off the Tokyo Dome roof, and then you just bring these 2 guys over who at that time was this guy Yagi and another guy named Darvish, and he's like, hey, come meet these 2 new young guys, and at that time didn't know who Darvish was, but you just bring people along with the journey, and you're so relational, and I love it. And so I love hearing this, and I love that people can hear your backstory a little bit. But I think now, just kind of transitioning, Shane has some questions regarding really how did you get to Japan, and why did you stay? And so I'll kick it off to Shane.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks, Trey. That was really interesting to hear. And I have to ask, so if Josh remembers your daughter's doing the gymnastics with the on the field, and you're a competitive gymnast, did you ever join them?
You know what I did? Honestly, I tumbled a lot, Shane, while I was in Japan. A lot of people may or may not know this about BB, a Brisky Bear, the mascot for the Fighters. He was, while I was there, I think he's since moved on into a front office position, is my understanding. But the original BB, when we were in Tokyo and then transitioned to Hokkaido, this guy was, number one, he was educated both in Japan and the United States. A music degree. He was an exceptional piano. So when we had our fan fests in Hokkaido, I would sing and he would play the piano with his BB mitts on. He was incredible. But he was also a very proficient tumbler and gymnast. And I would get together with him when there was no media around at the Sapporo Dome. And we'd go out and we'd tumble together at the Sapporo Dome. And dadgummit, one day there's one baseball card of me doing a back handspring. And that wasn't supposed to happen, because I've always believed as the manager, especially in Japan, and I don't fault Japan in any way with the way the managerial position is something that I'm interested in. So I really didn't want to be the focal point and the center of attention. I wanted the players to be that center of attention. But our daughter, because of my gymnastics background, on our back 3 acres back there, we have a major league size uh, turf infield with 60 and 90-foot bases, and we donate that to the community. Well, she learned to tumble back there on that, and that was precipitated because she was one of the fighters girls, and those fighters girls treated her like a little sister. You know, they were 19 to 24 years old, and our daughter Brianna was 6 years old when she started doing that, from 6 to 11. So that was an incredible experience for her.
Wow, what a great opportunity for her. So I want to talk a little bit, going right back to 2002. So right before you left for Japan, you had been, well, I would think from reading it, a rising star in the Yankees system as a manager. And you come home to Texas to be their farm director, and they're stocked with guys like Hank Blaylock and whatnot. And you're coming home to Texas. How much did it surprise you when you got offered the fighter's job? Was there anything that led up to that? And then how hard was it to make a decision to leave when you had just come back home to leave for a completely foreign country?
Okay, you know, a lot of people don't know this story. I'm happy to share it. So I signed a 2-year deal in the fall of 2001 to be the director of player development and the field coordinator. So that's, for those of you that don't know, and I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence, but those are two different roles. They're both considered executive positions. The field coordinator actually coordinates everything that happens on the minor league fields in conjunction with whatever the major league staff needs, specifically the manager and the general manager. The other part of that was I was the minor league director, so I was also in charge through Grady Fuson, who was he was our vice president of player development and scouting. So I was also in charge of moving all the pieces in the minor leagues. And at that time, we had 6 minor league teams. So that's a lot of moving parts. When I interviewed for the job, the only thing that I told Grady was I really need to stay in uniform and on the field as much as possible. That's what drives me. I don't want to be in khakis and a collared shirt and be in the office. He said, that's perfect for what I want, because I want my director to be the field coordinator too. So you will be on the field with every one of our minor league teams. You will run spring training for all 6 minor league clubs, and it fits perfect. So it was what happened with that was I remember the date. It was June the 22nd in 2002, and I'm standing in the kitchen here at our home, right where I am now in Central Texas, and I get a call from Japan from Toshi Shimada. And Toshi and I were friends because the Nippon-Ham Fighters had a player exchange in the fall with the New York Yankees. And Toshi called and he said, hey, I just wanted to let you know I will contact whoever I need to contact, but we're very interested in you coming to Japan and being our manager next year. And I went, wow, that's great. You know, and a lot of people don't know this either, but I had managed in the Hawaiian Winter League, and I had a rotation of 8 Japanese players, and I fell in love with them. I just fell in love with their work ethic and their knowledge, and just their demeanor and kidding around with them, and then how sociable they were. So I had asked my wife after that Hawaiian Winter League, I said, would you ever want to go to Japan? And she said, so fast forward to 1996, I believe, when I got sent to Hawaii. And fast forward to 2002, and I get the call, and she's standing right beside me. And I told them who they needed to call. Well, the very next morning, I was flying to Oklahoma City to be with our AAA club for the Texas Rangers. And Grady Fuson was meeting me there, our vice president of player development and scouting. And I told him, I said, hey, I got a call from Japan last night. And he was so graceful. He said, you know, you signed a 2-year deal to be with us and be with me specifically, but it's not a matter of what's best for the Texas Rangers. It's a matter of what's best for Trey Hillman and his family. And, you know, that's where Grace and a friend, I'm a boss, but, you know, things rolled. And by August the 15th, it was hush hush. There were only 5 or 6 people with the Texas Rangers that knew. And there were maybe that many in Japan that knew. But by August 15th, 2002, I was set to go to Japan for the 2003 season.
Wow. Wow. So that must have been interesting then, playing it out for the last few months. But I want to fast forward a few years now. And I'm going to share this picture with everyone. This is going to be my last question. Then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So just for you audience members, please use the raise hand feature if you have a question. Click the participants button at the bottom of your screen, and then a raise hand button will pop up. Press that raise hand button, and I'll see it on my end here who has a question, and I'll get to you after I ask this last question of Trey before passing it over. So I want to share this picture, and I want you to please just take us there. What does that feel like? So, like, what does that feel like? And then, you know, and also what made that team unique? What made that team special, and how'd you get there? But I want to know what that feels like. That's a feeling not many people in the world get to have.
Yeah, that doage. I tell you what, man, I've had more doages than anybody deserves to ever have. All blessings from God in heaven. It's incredible. You know, it never crossed my mind. This is one thing I like to share with people that ask me about that. It never crossed my mind until about the 3rd toss, but I never maybe it's naivety. I don't know. Maybe I'm really, really naive, but I never thought about them dropping me. I just thought about the joy of those guys in that circle celebrating what we had done. And it was extremely humbling to think I was the guy that was getting tossed up. So it's very humbling, but at the same time, it's like riding the best roller coaster you've ever been on in your life. I mean, it's just like such a thrill to get tossed up in the air by guys that you were blessed to get to manage. And you just look at that and you go, seriously, is this really happening? And then when it happened again in I know in Korea, but it tossed me up in the air there too. And I just thought, wow, this is very, very special.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. That's the best roller coaster ever. I like that. And I can imagine. Yeah. All right, Ian, I'm going to you, Ian Razor. Ian.
Hi, Trey.
Hi, Ian.
So participation in a baseball has gone down amongst younger people, children. And I was wondering what your solution to that is. And I'm also wondering if you think there should be like caps on how much practice kids should do as well. Like some kids practice 360 days a year, and it's like they're in boot camp, not playing baseball. So I was just wondering about your opinion on stuff like that.
Okay, I'll cover the boot camp aspect. First and foremost, and this goes back to my fighter days too. First and foremost, I think the most important thing that anybody associated, especially with youth baseball, can do for kids is to make it fun. And I understand the competitiveness of it. I hate to lose. I love to win. I get that. But I think that there has to be more balance. And I think that the number one thing, regardless of whether or not it's a club sport or if it's a select team, I think that the number one objective should be to keep it fun for the kids, and any sacrifices that the kids have to make for other activities, especially with their family, I think they ought to get a mulligan on that. So back to kids interested. I'm involved in one of the things that I'm very proud with Major League Baseball is the RBI program. I think we've got to continue to strive to get all kids, not just inner city kids, but all kids interested in playing baseball. And one of the reasons soccer is such a growing sport is because all you got to do is find an open field and set up a couple of barriers for goals, and the kids get to play soccer. And it's growing here in Central Texas just as it is all over the world. But we need to fund it to where kids have the equipment to be able to play baseball. And the RBI program does an excellent job of that. So I would just hope, and I don't track like what's on minor league teams here in the United States, because if that had happened, good Lord, 36, 37 years ago, my should-be Hall of Fame manager, Don Mattingly, would not have even been drafted. And he was drafted in the 19th round. So I hope that we end up growing the game more instead of limiting the game. And I know I'm spinning off of your question, Ian, but I think we have to get back to the ground roots of all ethnicities, inner city, wealthy, middle income, whatever, and supply them, those that can't afford it, with the equipment that they need, and then keep it fun. And I hope that answers your question.
Thanks for that, Trey. And thank you, Ian. All right, Daniel, I'm going to you. You're up next in the car. Hey, Daniel. Here, let's try that. Hold on, we can't hear you. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can.
Okay, I read that you had a player that you yanked from pitching, and he was upset because he could have gotten 10 games won. When you're coaching, do you ever consider players going for records, or do you not consider that at all?
Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely consider that. You even make sure that your media department, especially in the United States, they give you heads ups on momentous occasions in individual statistics. Yes. And I drew the line really hard for a playoff spot and positioning. We were playing Bobby Valentine's team, Chivalote Marines, and Connie Murrah got very upset. You know, the thing that's not covered in the media leading up to that is Connie Murrah had not been very effective in his previous 4 to 5 starts. I had a history even in Kansas City. And actually, it was probably one of my downfalls is I would stick with my starters too long. I didn't have a very good bullpen in Kansas City. I just didn't have a lot of experience and a lot of power arms. But that's where I draw the line. I draw the line, Daniel, with is it team or is it time for individuals? And I knew that 10 wins was a big deal. I replay that game. If I'd left Connie Murrah in, he would have given up the lead. Everything was flat. I evaluate pitchability. I evaluate opposition swings. I listen to my pitching coach. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's my decision. I still stand by what I did. I forgave him even more than the organization did. It was my recommendation that he be brought back into the fold and have an opportunity of experiencing our playoff run and eventual championship. And he was a contributor to that. I look back on that, and I really wouldn't have handled it any different from what I now 14 years later.
Thanks, Daniel, for that question. That's a really interesting question. All right, Craig Katz, I'm going to you.
Hi, Trey. Thank you for doing this. It's been fascinating. What I'm curious about is if you were advising a young player who had the option to go to Japan or South Korea, and all financial sorts of things were basically equivalent, what would you tell them to consider when evaluating the offers in terms of those two different countries?
Wow, that's an excellent question, Craig. First and foremost, I would educate them on what my experience is in both countries. And succinctly put, I've been asked this question many. Basically, I would say the Japan baseball, number one, more fundamentally sound. Number two, the pitching is better. And number three, the fan interaction is more fanatical. Okay. Korea, on the other hand, is a little more affable to especially a Western sense of humor. They get, especially, and maybe it's me being a redneck from Central Texas, grew up in Dallas, Fort Worth, but they're a little more affable, not quite as serious as the Japanese coach or player. They're more offensive oriented. Really, to answer your question, Craig, I would consider what position they play. And if they're an offensive oriented player and they're really looking to put up offensive numbers, I'd say, dude, go to Korea. The pitching's not as good. And even though you're not going to play in front of as many people, and the defense and the surfaces are not as nice, there are less domes. You're going to have more rainouts, but you're going to hit more bombs, and you're going to increase your chances of making more money with your incentive package if you can get one. So if they're a pitcher and they're proficient, especially if they're a starting pitcher or a back end power guy, I'd say go to Japan. If they're an infielder or an outfielder that is specifically defensive specialist, but they've also got some speed and exceptional agility, and they're going to be proficient at stealing bases, and their demeanor and their personality is very sacrificial, then I'd say go to Japan. Does that make sense, Craig?
Yes, it does. Thank you for that. That was quite fascinating.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for being on. You and Daniel were one of the first guys on here. Daniel, in your car, by the way. I meant to tell you this. That was awesome.
Thanks for that question, Craig. Appreciate it. All right, Ted, you are up next. But you're mute. Oh.
Okay, could you?
Yeah, we got it. We're good. Oh,
you got it? Okay.
Now we're good, yeah.
Hey, thanks for being here. I'm from Springfield, Virginia, and I'm a Nats fan. So when the Marlins come, I'm going to go down and say hello to you. Here's my question.
Please do. Please do, Ted.
I will. My question, what were some, during your career, some of the hardest decisions you had to make as a manager in dealing with players? And then during a game, what were some of the hardest decisions you had to make?
I think as a manager, the most difficult decisions that you have to make is on your starting pitcher. And I learned this, for those of you that don't know, this was not Trey Hillman's idea. This was God's plan. And George Bradley, who hired me away after 1 year of free agent scouting in 1988, he hired me away to join the development staff, which just is cool speak for minor league coach. He hired me away to join the New York Yankees, and I coached at 26. And by the time I turned 27, he had made me the manager of our instructional league team, and then named me the manager of the short A season, which to my understanding is still a record in professional baseball. He turned me into a manager at 27 years old. It wasn't because I was that smart, and I'm still not. But I started managing at 27 years old in the New York Penn League, and that first year we won a championship. And it wasn't because of Trey Hillman's managerial prowess. It was because our free agent scouts had a great draft, and I got great players. And, I tell people this all the time. Coaches coach, managers manage, players play. Players win ball games. Can you make a difference as a coach? Absolutely. Can you make a difference as a manager? Absolutely. But, in comparison to what the players do, that difference is very, very small. So back to what your question was, Ted, the most difficult decisions to make as a manager, first and foremost, is when to pull your starting pitcher. And a really, really great manager, as I was coming up, once told me, he said, Trey, you really don't have to watch your pitcher. He said, just watch the opposition's hitters. When you're getting loud outs and extra base hits and they're squaring it up and you're seeing the plane of that pitch go from what we want here or up here now with analytics with the four-seam fastball, the hitters will tell you when it's time to get the bullpen warmed up. The hitters will tell you when it's time to go to the bullpen. But you better pay attention. So that, Ted, is the thing, because as long as the game's been played, those starting pitchers dictate the momentum of the game. I just did a coach's clinic for a group in Austin last week, and the ranges of ages of these coaches was 6 all the way to 18. And I told them, I said, please, I asked the question, I said, what do your kids want to do when they get to the ballpark? And they had the correct answer, and it's always been the same, and it's still the same. They want to hit. And I said, okay, look at every team in the history of the game that gets to the finals in baseball. They pitch it, they catch it, then they hit it. So I think the second most important thing beyond your starting, obviously at the level that I'm blessed to get to coach at, your bullpen, that's 7th, 8th, and 9th guys that I say they don't vibrate. It's like almost they don't have a pulse. The situation, the fans, the hitter, they really don't vibrate much. Their heart rate doesn't go up and down really bad. It just stays constant. Beyond that, though, it's got to be catch it. So as a manager, you've got to make sure you're consistent with your PFP work, which is, for those of you that don't know, that stands for pitchers fielding practice. That's the pitchers actually interacting with your infielders. And as a defensive coordinator and as a ex-manager / infield specialist, the most powerful play in the game of baseball as far as regularity. This is going to be my 37th year in professional baseball. And I have never seen more than twice of triple plays in one season. And that means twice that it's happened, not just in the stadiums I've been in the leagues I've been in. So if that happened with more regularity, that would be the most powerful. But with my infielders in full left-handed shift and full right-handed shift and regular set, we work double plays as much as we do anything, because one pitch and 2 outs. So that is the second paradigm of, pardon me, of things that I think are the epitome of importance for managers making sure you work on, especially with, and then you accentuate that if you're a National League team. And as the Miami Marlins, we have 3 possible bunt plays with a runner on first base only on the defense, and then 4 possible bunt plays with runners on first and second. And then we have a pick series at first base and second base with every pitcher. And now we've got analytics, and we're so analytically driven and concise. And I know this wasn't part of your question, but I think the viewers might be interested in this. We have a Hawkeye system that actually, down to the foot, takes pictures of our infielders and outfielders at the time the ball is in contact for the hitter. And then we have specific spots for each pitcher versus each hitter on the opposition. So that's my responsibility. I get evaluated and graded day by noon on how we grade out what our analytics say. The computer model says where we should have been down to the foot for every pitch of every pitcher that we put in the ball game against every hitter that we face the previous night. Okay. So those are the things that I think are the most important, Ted. I hope I didn't convolute all that. I know I gave some extra info, but
thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for being on.
Okay, and see you at Nats Park.
That'd be great. Thank you, Ted.
Thanks, Ted. All right, so we got 3 people with their hands raised, and we're getting up against time. So maybe we could do a little bit of a rapid fire. One of them's got a Fighters jersey, and 2 of them I think have, if know you or met you. So I want to get to them all.
Okay.
All right, so Joe, I'm going to you.
Trey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you, buddy?
Good, man. I'm another NL Easter up here in Philadelphia. So when you make it up to Citizens Bank, if we're able to get in the park, we'd definitely come and say hello.
Awesome.
Before my question, I did want to report on Hokkaido. I was there 2 years ago, and they still watch your championship series on replay there. At a bar I was at, they had the whole thing on for like 2 days. It was awesome.
Oh, well, thank you.
So
that's very humbling.
Yeah, super cool. My question is a little broader. You've had this, when I read about your career, it just, it's mind blowing. It's just such a cool journey. And so I'm just curious to know, like, if you were to be put on the spot, kind of as you are now, what would be like the one sort of wow moment that really stands out to you? Like the first thing that comes to mind in that time?
Yeah, that's easy, Joseph. I appreciate the question very much. Nobody's ever asked it in all the interviews and things that I've ever done, even with nobody's ever asked it in that way. And I'll tell you, I covered it earlier. It was my first day in the major leagues.
Cool.
I remember looking at Kazuki Shirai, and we're standing for the Japan national anthem in the third base dugout at the Seibu Dome. And he understood enough English, and I felt like I was filled with the Holy Spirit to say this to your Japanese brother, because that's what he was for me. We had known each other from Yankee days, and he had spent a year in the United States and traveled the system, and he's still a wonderful guy. But Kazuki Shirai, I looked at him and I went, oh my goodness, this is my first day in the major leagues. And I said it earlier, it's true. I did some cool things as a Division I collegiate player. But when I look at it and I see what these guys do that I get to coach, and what they did in Japan and what they did in Korea, and go on every level of the minor leagues, I look at this and I go, wow, I was so blessed to even put on a professional uniform as a player. So the most impactful thing for me is that God bless day in Cebu when I actually spent my first major league game, and it was in the country of Japan. And I tell people this all the time. I grew up my whole life praying and asking God, please let me be a major league shortstop. I want to play big league shortstop. And I thought, and I've said this 1,000 times, I bet. God's got a great sense of humor. He didn't let me be a player in the major leagues, but he allowed me to make it to the major leagues all the way over.
Super cool, man. Beautiful answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. All right, I think a familiar face to you, I assume. Marty Keener, you're up next.
Hey,
Marty!
Trey. Trey, Kyoko says to tell you the lasagna is ready to go in the oven when you're going to come over.
Oh my goodness, I'm in a 3-point stance. Give my love to that family, buddy. It's great to see you.
We'd love to share some camaraderie with you again.
Absolutely.
I thought I'd share with the gang here today camaraderie that we have. You and I both have a history with a guy by the name of Yu Darvish. And your history with him is a lot better than mine is, because the most stupid decision I made as a general manager my first year was to pass on Darvish and sign a player by the name of Ichiban, as I'm sure you remember. Our organization was looking at, we thought as a college pitcher that was more mature, ready to play, could, win more for us right away. So we let the high school kid go, and you got him. And that was kind of a bad turning point in my career, but it was great you got it. But I wish you would tell the people about the impact that he had when he came to your club. And I remember an incident that we talked about later, where he got to be such a big star that he did that semi-nude layout in the magazine.
Yeah, the Japanese GQ. Yeah.
I remembered that you told me you just sat him down in your office and had a long talk with him, and it may have changed his career. And I wish if you could tell the people about what you told a young Yu Darvish, that head might have been getting a little bit too big at that time.
Yeah, Artie, my experiences with you and still are here in the United States have been exceptional. I don't think that, and I say this with all humility and honesty, I don't think I did a lot for you. He was God gifted with incredibly large hands, for those that don't know. I'll tell a little side story and then I'll answer your question, Marty. And it's great to see you, by the way. You look great. Mike Brown was my pitching coach. And I purposely did not go. First of all, I experienced a lot of pressure from ownership in the front office, but it was clearly stated that I had total autonomy as long as I communicated roster. So when we signed you, I got a lot of pressure that I had from the front office was to start him in the major leagues. And I refused to do it. I'd learned too many things in my development days with the New York Yankees. And there was no downside to Yu Darvish getting his feet wet in the minor leagues. So he ended up getting, I believe, 5, maybe 6 starts in the minor leagues, something like that. And then he came up, and he was, as advertised, a man amongst boys. But I'll never forget, in 2004, Mike Brown coming into my office. I didn't go watch his bullpen. And Mike Brown came in and he said, wow. Now, Mike Brown was a seasoned pitching coach at that point. He'd been doing it for several years. And he said, Trey, this young man can get touch and changing a grip quicker than anyone I have ever seen in my career. And I went, oh, so he is that special? And Mike said, yeah. He said, you're really going to like it. So you can imagine the thrill that I had standing in the third base box at Wrigley Field this year as our Marlins are playing the Cubs in the playoffs, and getting to watch you from the third base box and just being proud. I wanted us to win. I wanted us to beat him, but I was really proud. When that incident happened with, he was getting a little bit big for his britches. You're exactly right. I think everyone saw that. I let you be you the same way I let Shinjo be Shinjo. Before we ever signed Shinjo, the front office came to me and said, hey, this is what this guy brings to the table. How are you going to handle this? And I said, well, different personalities, and I'm satisfied with their team before self, then I can deal with it. So when that happened with you and the pictorial, I called him in my office, and he was very reticent and very humble. He knew he was in the doghouse, you know. And I just tried to talk to him like a young man. And I said, look, you're young. We've had the smoking incident already. Now we've got the pictorial incident. I said, I think the thing that you're missing is that everything that you do, whether it's on the field or off the field, is a reflection on our organization. And what I need you to do is look at our organization more like your family and treat that with the respect that you would of your mother and father. And I think it resonated with him. The meeting was probably 10 minutes long. In typical Japanese player fashion, in a meeting with the manager, he didn't offer to speak. I offered to allow him to give his rebuttal, and his only rebuttal was, to my recollection, is you're right, and I'll be more thoughtful in the future, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the embarrassment to the organization. But you know, guys like that, Michihiro Gusawara, Shinjo, Yu Darvish, Tanaka Yukio, Kanimura, those guys, a couple of those guys didn't get as much as the others, but other than being in Japan, I can't imagine what their daily life was like with all that attention, you know? And I think when you're in a leadership position, you got to take that into consideration. I don't really know what it's like to be Darvish. So sometimes I think you got to give him a mulligan, give him a second chance, and give him that tough love and hit him right between the eyes and tell him the truth.
I remember the Kanimura incident too, and I remember that it was the club, as you just mentioned. I don't know if everybody knows, but the club came down really hard on him, and
Whoa.
they suspended him, and there was a lot of things, and he was in deep doo-doo, and you were the one that bailed him out. I remember that you were the one that had the compassion to say, you know, okay, people make mistakes, and you were the one that really bailed him out.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that, Marty. I don't want to get rotator cuff surgery by patting myself on the back by any means, but I was very at how hard they came down to loyalty and support. At the same time, I was a little bit shocked at how hard they were, because honestly, there was absolutely no plan in their mind to let this guy come back. So when they told me about what the penalty was going to be, and before they even finished their breath on that, I simply said, and this was the day after, I said, let's not be too rash to make decisions in the heat of the moment. And I said, it happened to me. So if I can be a little bit balanced about it, then I'm going to ask you as ownership and front office to be balanced about it. And I said, let's see where this goes. and let's see what his attitude and how miss he is about what he said about me and how he reacted. We've all made mistakes. I said, let's strongly consider allowing the possibility of him coming back before the season's over. And they said, wow, well, we weren't considering that, but at your request, we will. So I don't even remember, Marty. Do you remember the time span from the time it happened to the time we, hugged him back into the group?
I think he was banned for a couple of weeks and then came back, as I recall. But I remember that he was cooked. Had it not been for you, he certainly would not have played again that year. That's for sure.
Well, I would tend to agree with you on that. But, I've never had any animosity about that. And I've actually been surprised how much it's been brought up. I know it's a big deal in that culture, but honestly, once it was over, it was over. And the guy comes back and he helps us win. So, that goes back to, is it about self or is it about your family and your team? So
absolutely,
that was a no-brainer for me, at least for my philosophy.
One more thing before I leave you. You got Segi there to keep your back there in Miami?
Oh, absolutely. Segi is our international director, and it's, I still throw batting practice every day when I'm out throwing batting practice during spring training, and Segi's leaning on the cage, and of course he's still this massive figure. I say, Segi, grab a bat. I'm going to hit you right in the ribs.
You have any more Japan grads with you there in Miami?
No, we don't actually. Only Segi. Yeah, no other Japan grads.
Give him a hug for me.
I will, man. And give my love to the family.
The lasagna is always ready for you.
Well, thank you, brother. I hope to see you again.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Shane.
Great to hear from you guys. That was fun. All right.
Shane, sorry to interrupt, but don't be worried about the time, man. This is a pleasure for me. So if you got a couple more questions, I'm good to go. Don't worry about me.
Great. Thanks so much. Well, we got two people here with their hands raised. So, and one, a big Fighters fan here, Jerry Halverson. Jerry, you're up.
Yeah, Trey, hi. Nice to see you again.
Jerry, what are you doing?
Hey. Well, I mostly retired.
Well, good for you.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Marty. And the quick question, one, what percentage as a manager would you say analytics and what percentage as gut feeling?
Oh, great question. As a manager, you're asking, correct?
Oh, okay, manager, coach, or whatever. Answer it however you wish, but gut versus analytics. What kind of balance do you strive for?
Well, I call myself now, Jerry, with all the analytics, I call myself a new school, old school guy. The analytics, this computer stuff, it's spot on. I mean, it is really, really good. So I would have to go 60% analytics, 40% gut. But the gut part comes with all the prep work that a manager needs to do, and a coach for that matter, with your pre-series meetings, with whether or not you're going to shift or not shift Freddie Freeman, and why, and who's pitching. I would say that, the 40% of that gut, I would say maybe 50% of that 40% comes from your analytical before you get into that series. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you. And your uniform still fits.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for rocking the jersey, man. I miss my Nippon-Ham family very much.
Yeah, you too. Anytime you come over, just, you're welcome, of course.
Well, I've got a call actually next week with Ikeda-san and some other Hokkaido personality. She's a young lady, and they're going to do this thing on YouTube. But I told Ike, yeah. I said, Ike, man, let's go. Marie and I want to come to Japan next fall. So hopefully we can do that.
Okay. See you then.
All right. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, back to Ian. We got one more question from Ian. Ian.
So back in 2016, I was at T-Mobile Park, and you were a coach with the Astros, and I asked you if you said Shohei Ohtani was going to be a better pitcher in the majors, and you said yes, and we saw flashes of that. So do you think he should keep pitching? And on the Marlins, you have a really good pitcher named Sixto Sanchez, who has incredible stuff. And so how good do you think he can be as well?
Ian, I think first and foremost with Sixto, I think the sky is the limit because he's getting better with the secondary pitches. Obviously, he can throw 97 to 101. So I think the sky's the limit with him as a starting pitcher. There's a body comp issue. It's not bad right now, but it's not great. He's young. If he will pay better attention to his intake as far as his diet and his regiment throughout the course of the season, and especially the off season, this guy's going to be a beast. Back to Ohtani, considering the fact that most probably, according to medical reports that I heard, I don't have any verification on this, there was some partial damage already to the UCL when he came over. So now that he has already had the surgery, I don't think that it's a matter of whether or not he could be. I think he still could be a very, very major force as a starting pitcher. I think it's more of what he feels internally and mentally. Mound, what it takes once every 5 days, all DHing and hitting in the American League, to whether or not he wants to take that chance in shortening his career and whether or not he can actually let the ball go as a starting pitcher. You get to a point where you talk to these guys and you're asking these guys to absorb somewhere between 180 and 220 innings a season, and then they add how many pitches per game that they're pitching. That's a lot of reps. So I think it's more of a mental question as long as the repair holds up with that UCL, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we got to see him be fantastic doing pitching and hitting for 3 years.
Right.
And then these past 3 years in the majors, and in 2017, we see him being injured for 4 straight years. So I'd almost just want him to hit and put pitching behind him. But it's up to him, of course.
Yeah, I think it all depends on what his spirit's telling him to do, and that's the one thing that a lot of people don't understand with the analytical information that we get and that we evaluate. With the analytics, the one thing that they're never going to be able to evaluate is what that guy's feeling, what's in his heart, and those daily conversations, whether it's our pitching coach and Mel Stottlemyre Jr. or, Mickey Callaway with the Angels, the former manager and the former pitching coach with the Indians. That's how come I think we all have to stay foundationally based with our relationships. So those guys tell us what their innermost feelings are. So you got a better idea to help them facilitate the success that leads to the team goal of whatever it is that you're trying to accumulate. And obviously everybody wants the same thing. I leave in 6 days to go to Florida to Jupiter, and we're all going to show up just like the other 29 teams, and everybody's going to be going, hey, it's time to win a championship. And if you're not saying that, regardless of what the prognosticators say, then you probably shouldn't be in the business.
Thank you for that. So that's all. I have one more question, and then I'm gonna pass it off to Josh to say goodbyes.
Sorry, Shane. I'm sorry. sorry to interrupt, but I'm out of time. I'm just kidding.
Well, first of all, Sanjay's complimenting your room there. I think next time we have you on, we have to get a tour of your man cave because it looks like you got some amazing stuff back behind you.
Well, anybody that's involved with JapanBall, if you happen to be in Central Texas, you can come see it in person. It'd be my honor.
That's awesome. Thank you. So to finish it off for me, I'm just curious. You've seen so much. You've accomplished so much. This game has given back to you a lot, as you've said. What remains for you? What goals do you have, if any? And what do you look for this part of your career going forward?
Yeah, when I left the Royals, was asked to leave the Royals, I really didn't think I would manage again, honestly. There were some aspects about the media part of it that bothered me. I've always attempted to be totally transparent and truthful. So I was quite shocked, honestly, when God called us back to as bench coach with the Astros to go back to Korea. But after managing, it's the same as coaching. When I wake up in the morning, even though I'm not the bench coach now, my job really is one thing, and that's to serve the manager. So whatever the manager's needs are, and my philosophy, everyone's heard several times, I have to be relational. I've got to have relationships with the guys I'm in charge of. So honestly, I really don't have any goals other than serve my manager, Don Mattingly, the best way I possibly can. We both work for the Miami Marlins. And then the guys on defense, I'm the coordinator. But my guys are really anybody that touches that infield dirt. Those are my guys. I'm there every day at home and on the road. I set up for early work. It's optional. Sometimes it's depending on how their bodies feel. But honestly, it's a pretty simple mindset. It's serve the manager, serve the Marlins, and serve the players that I get to work with. And if God leads me back to managing, whether it be Korea or Japan, I'm up for that. I've had many questions, and there've been some rumors, with that new ballpark coming in 2023. I have no idea if that's in Nippon-Ham's plans. I won't do it if I still have my dad. My dad's 86 years old. He's in great health. I love spending time with him. We bought a ranch in March. So I've got a ranch 3 hours away that I love. A lot of work hunting there, and love the off season with family. But I am not opposed at all to coming back to Japan. If we're not there working in Japan in 2023, I have every intention of my wife and our 2 children being at opening day. I want to see that ballpark. I want to see my fighter family, the people that are still there and the people that aren't there, so one way or another, we're going to get back to Japan to see that new ballpark.
Yeah, we can't wait to see that park. And whether you're there on the field in uniform or as a fan, it'll be cool to see that homecoming. And we'll all be rooting for you at the Marlins and wherever else you go. So thank you so much for joining us. It was really great hearing from you and all your insights and how much you appreciate this international version of the game that all of us on the call love too. So I'm going to hand it off to Josh to say goodbye. And then when Josh says his parting words, you're welcome to sign off. I ask if everyone else on the call could just stay on for a few minutes. I want to make a few announcements before saying goodbye, but Trey, you've been so generous with the time. So I'll say goodbye to you now, and you can sign off when Josh is done.
Okay. Thanks so much, Shane.
Yeah, and Trey, I think I speak on behalf of everyone here. We really felt like we were part of your family for this hour, and we're just so generous with your time, and you just emanate your feelings and your humility and actually how much you really care for this conversation and sharing with us here. So I just want to say thank you so much. I love you, brother, and really look forward to the next time to see you. And I think, on behalf of everyone here, thank you for your time.
It's my pleasure, buddy. You got an in with me. Anybody that loves Jesus as much as you do, and my brother Will over there, hey, I leave you hanging, and it's I get that because of the blessings God's blessed me with, and the people like you and Will and Marty and everybody, all the Hokkaido people, Jerry, that has consistently stayed in touch. And now I've got new friends through this venue. So please don't think that you're ever bothering me. And hopefully I can always be available for JapanBall. And I'd love to do it again. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, thank you, Trey.
Thank you.
Trey.
Thanks so much.
Trey.
Oh.
I was glad to hear, Trey, that you were fixing to start your 37th year with the.
Yeah, what the heck are you fixing, you redneck Texan?
I wanted to know if you're gonna today you're fixing to fix the Starbucks machine in your kitchen.
You're killing me.
I'm glad you're still fixing.
All right.